We're going to go now to some of the many questions we received via social media. Now that CinemaScope is on Twitter. No, there were more than two. We had questions from
two from your wife.
Only one question from my wife. My wife's question, Tanya K, or T. Koehler, was do we think is the most divisive film here?
Oh,
which is to read between the lines, a chance to talk about Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, that's easy.
Bob, why do you like Wuthering Heights so much? For the love of God.
For all the reasons you hate it. No, I mean, Andrea Arnold has had up to this film a very pockmarked career, I would say. It's been extremely uneven, almost by definition uneven. I mean, the first half of Red Road is quite strong. The last half of Red Road is not kind of a train wreck, ludicrous. Much of Fish Tank was highly problematic with some interesting performances, but a dreadful script. And so expectations on an Andrea Arnold version of Wuthering Heights were between 0 and 1 on my scale.
They were accurately pitched.
And what I realized what she had done by the end of the film was it was a radical repudiation of over 50 years of British period drama, and consciously so. And it was a way of getting back to some of the real brutal essence of the novel, which is at points an extremely brutal novel.
Is there face punching?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some really violent passages in Wuthering Heights.
We won't hijack this section for too long because I want to hear what other people think might be polarizing films or films of extreme reaction. But I'm amazed it took you till the end of the film to realize what she was doing, because in the first 5 minutes, all that's there is the repudiation. I think the big problem with the movie is that the older actors, to me, do not remotely match up with those kids. And whatever it is she's doing, if we're going to say it works, it may work while the kids don't really have much in the way of dialogue. But as soon as those actors take over, I mean, it may be a repudiation of romanticism, but you need to feel some connection between Heathcliff and Catherine for this material to work, even in its kind of, as you say, Olivier blacked up, film versions. And it's just not there. I thought that these were sort of inexpressive lumps, which is how I think she directs her actors. And whatever power the film had, it's obviously very well shot, or there's a lot of shooting in it. I think, for me, really faded by the end. I mean, would you defend the two adult actors, and then we can leave Wuthering Heights? They work for you. Did you feel that they matched up with those kids? I know it's subjective, but
I think you're applying a very Hollywood standard to the material in that way. The typical Hollywood question is in the casting director's offices in Los Angeles and New York was, but do those older actors really look like they could be those younger kids who we've cast already when they grow up 15 years later? That doesn't matter. I mean, that really does not matter in this. That's not an important consideration. What's really important here is plunging the viewer into a physical and sensual experience of a literary work, and rather than transferring the literary work to the screen as a words-based text, it transfers it as a visual and oral experience. And that's part of what was kind of a radical reassessment of it. I mean, in a completely different way than sort of what Barry Lyndon did in that adaptation, which also radically...
Can you just compare Andrea Arnold to Stanley Kubrick?
Oh, the films. I'm comparing the films.
Kubrick also didn't cut to a wounded animal whenever he needed to spike the texture of the movie. But I'm gonna that was glib.
That was gratuitous.
I'll let Bob have the last word on Wuthering Heights, which is now apparently a good movie. John and Jason, anything that you guys were on either end of? Anything that you guys were on either end of that you found super divisive?
Well, we were at loggerheads going into Damsels in Distress, but then I feel I walked out, but you stuck it out.
I have a very weak defense for the Damsels in Distress.
Then that's not interesting.
It's not to me. And that's sort of like, I have a slight soft spot. There were a couple of films that I'm just still sort of surprised have gone over so well continually. Like, I just think Shame, for one, I was very disappointed by.
A question from reader Angelo M. was, Shame, terrible colonnade or mediocre colonnade?
Mediocre colonnade. But of course, the joke was already made. It depends on where you want to put the cologne.
Right.
But again, I think it's a film that Well, the thing about shame is it makes me question things I liked about hunger or forgave about hunger.
Yeah, me too.
And Melancholia, actually, the good thing about that is it's actually improved Antichrist for me. Because it proved
Really?
that sort of doing a sort of...
Melancholia also
Yeah.
sounds like a cologne.
Yeah, it does actually sound sort of nice. But again, it seems to be sort of still generating a lot of goodwill somehow. And both movies seem to be also kind of being regarded as quite commercial prospects too. And I just don't see how an audience is going to connect either one.
Another overrated film with commercial prospects, Dangerous Method, which I don't think anyone here really liked, but the defenders are out in force for it again.
I defend a little more than Whit Stillman, but maybe not.
No,
You just compared David Cronenberg to Matt Stillman.
I really enjoyed it, but I think it's just kind of tapped into a sort of like, 11-year-old self who really wanted to be a psychiatrist. So,
Right.
It's sort of like, and actually John made a great joke about that being sort of like this sort of Freudian fantasy camp, It's kind of like this, everything you ever wanted to know about psychoanalysis in one go. And
It is weird to see a film where there's no subtext at all because they're just psychoanalyzing each other, and there's a reason for it. Like in some ways, it's arch writing.
Best excuses ever.
Like when Freud says, "I represent your father," there's nothing underneath that because he's literally Freud talking. I don't know. It felt like all of Cronenberg's other movies, like very stilted, and I don't know. This felt more like television, maybe
Yeah.
than.
It was
than
Although you made the good.
Didn't it feel quite anal retentive too?
by
Very-
his
very
standards,
mannered, yeah.
very mannered, yeah.
Although you made a good point about Knightley's performance, which is another divisive thing, I guess, where
Yeah, she's good.
it kind of functions as a reverse Goldblum in The Fly, where you have the descent into madness already at the beginning, and you sort of watch her straighten out throughout the film, which was one thing that kept my eyes open throughout its fleet, brief duration.
No, it was a shocking exception in Cronenberg's catalog too, where he usually elicits amazing performances from actors. In this case, I think he collaborated in a dreadful performance by Keira Knightley. It was just, I thought it was one of the most blatant sales jobs for an Oscar nomination I've seen. In
Are there any other blatant
many
Oscar
seasons.
nomination sales jobs at this year's film festival?
Oscar nomination sales jobs.
Any others? Because I kind
Not in that class.
I didn't
That's
see
a
those
class
movies
by
this
itself.
year. Did anyone see any of the real bait?
I did see Glenn Close in the Albert Nobbs.
Albert Nobbs.
That was
Shannon, but he
Nobbs.
deserves it.
Michael
Shannon.
Michael
Take
Shannon.
Shelter?
You talk about Take Shelter.
Michael Shannon, Take Shelter.
So now they're just free for all sex.
That's just Michael Shannon being Michael Shannon. I don't think he's trying to.
No, I don't think he's
himself
trying to
an
win an
Oscar,
Oscar
right?
either.
I thought
No, that's a case of an actor completely investing himself in a role and throwing himself body and soul into it.
I
And
thought that actually Take Shelter and Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene are an interesting contrast because the threat of violence hangs over both of them for the entire film. But to me, it's a lot less calculated in Jeff Nichols' movie. Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, as a colleague wrote in a really good piece in Scope, I think. There's something really canny and calculated about the way that has to turn violent. Has anyone else here seen the movie? Am I the only one?
Seen the movie.
Oh, well then I get to be the only one who talks about
It's
it
not the
briefly.
movie, but you can talk about it.
No,
I don't need to talk about it.
Well, did it bother you that in order to communicate the sense of threat about this cult, there has to be this Manson-ish digression? Could it not just be about how tough it is to extricate yourself from a way of life and reconnect with people who've forgotten about you without also their coming to get her? I found that annoying, even though it's a very well acted and well made film. It's better than a lot of other American indies like Winter's Bone, for instance.
Well, I mean, if you're making a film about a cult, I think that to drive home the menacing aspects of being in a cult or the deleterious aspects of being in a cult, it certainly doesn't hurt that there is a threat of violence.
Yeah.
It pushes emotionally the reality of her situation, shall we say. So I didn't mind that. And John Hawkes is also great.
Yeah, John Hawkes is great. Best guitar playing scene of the festival.
I was just thinking about egregious Oscar bait things, and I have been really pushing WE on people because it is like moment by moment just thrilling. And
Is it like Moment by Moment with
Yeah.
John Travolta and Lily Tomlin?
no,
Thrilling.
it's more like
Thrilling how?
yeah, it's like every Miramax trailer put together over 90 minutes, but it really is exciting in a way that a lot of the I would take it over Rampart, for instance, even though Rampart is a conventionally good film with a sort of Oscar-worthy Woody Harrelson performance, but I kind of wanted a bit more excess, like from a lot of these sort
in
of
Los
films.
Angeles, we call that Rampart, by the way.
Oh, okay.
What do you call it?
Rampart.
Rampart.
Yeah. No.
I know, I don't want to say it more French.
Rampart. That's how it's called in Los Angeles. But anyway, where the film is set.
But I mean, I think just in general, the really,
Electric
yeah.
television.
I mean, I think it's clear at this point that there is no King's Speech / Slumdog Millionaire sort of like obvious favorite kind
Well,
of
we
thing.
never saw Albert Nobbs. So
It's true. You know,
Does
or
anyone know-
butter.
Does anyone know what butter is?
Glib, I'm guessing.
Did anyone see the press release that went around about butter?
Yes. Harvey Weinstein's attempt to
Ooh, Michelle
self-promote, linking with, some zeitgeisty aspect of American culture. In this case, Michelle
does one
Bachmann.
root- who does one
Michelle
root
Bachmann,
for?
who will be dead in the water in 2 months. So I'm not sure what he's going after
Can you
there.
really root for Harvey Weinstein against Michelle Bachmann? Like, who-
No, I think both
Devil
are.
you know.
you know?
I don't really care about either one, but.